Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Dedicator here. So just like I promised that I'm going to be dropping JAMB 2026 biology questions, and here is the video for JAMB 2026 biology questions. So in this particular video, you're going to come across questions that fellow UTME candidates like you saw in their D1 and D2 of their examination. So as usual, like I used to say, you can decide to use this video for practice, okay? If you want to use this video for practice, then for each question, you can pause the video, try to attempt, and then play it, and then get the answer. At the end of the day, you see how many you can get out of the questions that we're going to treat in this video. Okay, you can decide to use it to check how well you are prepared for your examination. Okay, so in all, one thing you should take note of is that you might not necessarily see these questions word for word, but then again, you can still see some of these questions word for word because they are real UTME 2026 questions. So there's a possibility that UTME repeats question. It's not like there's a possibility. UTMED always repeat question. Okay, and this repetition is dependent on location. So, for example, you can see a particular question that was asked in Delta State in Lagos, or Delta State in Benin, or Delta State in Kano State. Okay, so it's very, very important for you to have an idea of what was asked. Okay, so in this video, you are going to have an idea of some of the questions that have been asked in UTME 2026. As usual, if you are just turning into this channel for the first time and stumbling on this video, please do not hit the subscribe button. I have made this similar video on physics and then chemistry. You can do well to check out the video immediately after this video. So let's dive into some of the questions. Okay, so question one: which of the following is a plant that grows in a dry place? All right, plant that grows in a dry place. This is a very common question that UTME always asks. All right, plant that grows in a dry place, they are known as xerophytes. All right, you should know they are known as xerophytes. You should also know what mesophytes are. You should also know what hydrophytes are, and you should also know what epiphytes are. Because some of these questions they will not come out the way you are looking at them in this video, but rather they will be paraphrased, they will be changed. And so, if they are changed, you shouldn't be confused. You should still know the answer to this question, even if they are changed. Okay, so question two: the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. This is a very, very simple question. Consists of the brain and then the spinal cord. Remember that the nervous system is divided into two. You have the CNS and then you have the PNS, the what we call the PNS. The PNS is known as the peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves, right? Consists of the nerves. So you will see the nerves in the peripheral nervous system. While the brain and the spinal cord, you find them in the central nervous system. So brain and spinal cord makes up the central nervous system, while the nerves, the cranial nerve, your spinal nerves, makes up the peripheral nervous system. Okay, how you can also remember that is if we have a particular structure, this is a human brain, for example, and then you have the continuation, which is the spinal cord, right? This whole part here is known as CNS. CNS. So this is known as CNS, right? And now everything arising from this brain, the cranial nerves, everything arising from the spinal cord, they are known as the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system. Okay. Question three: when the calyx, also known as sepals, of a flower are fused together, it is called gamiocephalous. 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 Okay. If it is petals, it will be gamiopetalous. Please take note of that. Right. Question four: the part of the brain responsible for the sense of smell is the olfactory lobes. Olfactory. Olfactory, just as the name implies, olfactory, olfaction, smell. Okay. Smell, olfactory lobes. Question five: sexual reproduction in Spirogyra is, now one thing you take note of is Spirogyra undergoes sexual reproduction, okay? And this sexual reproduction is known as conjugation. Please take note, it is known as conjugation. My student platform where this question was dropped, right? Some students selected balding as their answer to this question. Please take note. Sexual reproduction in Spirogyra is known as conjugation and not balding or balding, just like some persons will call it, but I prefer to call it balding because it arises as a result of bulbs growing in the organism, bulb-like structure. Okay, balding is not even sexual, balding is asexual, but the question says sexual. So on that day of the examination, if eventually you come across this question, you should take note. Balding is not the answer. When you see spirogyra, what will come to your mind is conjugation. Balding is, let me say, for example, you have a particular organism like this. Okay, when it's time for this organism to reproduce, the organism has an outgrowth, develops an outgrowth. This outgrowth is known as a bulb. All right, so with time, this outgrowth will now fall. right? When it falls down, it now develops to the parents. That is known as balding. Then now, balding and fragmentation, they look alike somehow. But let me define fragmentation and tell you what fragmentation is. Fragmentation, let's say this is an organism, for example. If this organism wants to reproduce, a fragment is cut off. A fragment falls out. So this organism will now look like this, and say like this. Then this part falls out. Then this part now develops back to the parent. So you can see in fragmentation, a part of the organism is lost. But in balding, there's no part. The organism is still intact because it is a bulge that will come out and then it falls. Okay, so please, it's very important that you take note of all these slight and little definition, because if you take them for granted, you might end up feeling something that is very, very simple. Okay, question 6. Which of the following is a simple multicellular organism? All right, it's a very straightforward question. Your answer is Hydra. Hydra. Okay, question 7. In the human eyes, cones are examples of cones are example of. Now, you take note that in sense organ we have the sense of sight, and the organ in the sense of sight, or the organ for the sense of sight, is the eye, right? The eye, and in the eye we have a part of the eye known as the retina, right? The retina. Now, in this retina, there are cells. There are cells in the retina. Now, these cells in the retina, two of them, two common cells, are cones and then rods, right? They are cells in the retina, which is in the eyes. And now there's a mnemonic that you should take note of, and that mnemonic is Dr. CL. So you have Dr. CL. Now, what is the meaning of Dr. CL? D stands for dark. D stands for dark. And then L stands for light. Okay? L stands for light. C stands for cones, right? Cones. And then R stands for rod. So what exactly does this thing mean? You see question, you might come across a particular question, it will tell you which cell of the eyes is responsible for light, bright light, which cell is responsible for dim light or dark light. So you should know cones is for bright light, rod is for dim light or dark light. So the question says, in the human eye, cones are example of cells. The cones are cells, right? Take note of that. Okay. Question 8. Which of the following is an abiotic factor? Abiotic factor. So we know that we have factors in ecology, right? There are factors in ecology. We have the abiotic factor and we have the biotic factor. We already know that for the biotic factor, these biotic factors, they are living, right? Abiotic, they are non-living factors. So the question here says, what is the non-living factor, right? If you look at this, predation is done by a predator, right? And predator is definitely going to be a living. Parasitism is also a relationship between living things. Competition too is also between living things. So you see that rainfall is the only factor here that is not living. It is a non-living factor. So it is abiotic. Okay. Question 9. The ability to taste for PTC, phenol diocarbamide, is an example of. Now this is a very, very common question. Please, you shouldn't fail this question. The answer is discontinuous variation. Okay. The answer is discontinuous variation. So you should know what continuous variations are. I should know what discontinuous variation are. You should know morphological, and then you should know physiological. Okay, physiological for discontinuous, morphological for continuous. So depending on what you see, they might decide not to put discontinuous and just put physiological or morphological. Just know continuous is for this, discontinuous is for this. So the ability to taste for PTC is a discontinuous variation. Okay, it's a discontinuous variation. Question 10. Which blood groups can safely donate blood to a patient with blood group A? Alright, blood group A. Now, we already know that when you see a question like this, you should calm down. Alright, when it comes to donating blood, we have a blood group that is the universal donor, right? The blood group that is universal donor is O, right? And the blood group that is the universal recipient is AB. But we are not concerned with universal recipient because the question is talking about what? Donate blood. So we already know that O will be able to donate blood, right? O will be able to donate blood. So we will strike out any option that does not have O. So option A is wrong already because O must be there. Who can donate to group A, blood group A. Now, there's a rule for blood donation, and one of the first rule is that the same blood group can donate blood to themselves. So, what am I trying to say? Group A can donate to group A, group B can donate to group B, group O can donate to group O, group AB can donate to group AB. There is no complication there. So, which means that group A can also donate blood to this guy. So our correct answer is blood group A and blood group O can donate blood to a patient with blood group A. So now let's analyze. Why is option C wrong? Option C is wrong because AB cannot donate blood to what? A. Right? AB cannot donate blood to A. Option D is wrong because B cannot donate blood to A. Okay. All right. So the next question: if a woman with genotype XX and a man with genotype XY have children, the resulting genotype will be. Okay, this is a very simple question. When you see a question like this, what should come to your mind is the crossing. So we have XX, right? XX, and then we have XY. So we cross this first and this. So we have XX, right? Then we do this and this. So we have XY. Then we have this and this. We have XX. We have this and this, which gives us XY. So which means we have two XX and two XY, which makes option A the correct answer. So option A is the correct answer. Option A is the correct answer. All right. So next question: if tomatoes round fruit R is dominant over ring good, small letter R. If a pure round tomato is crossed with a pure ring tomato, the F generation will be. This is a very simple question. It will be all round. Okay. Law of dominance in one of the laws of inheritance. Law of dominance is that for the first crossing, if you cross a dominant with a recessive, the first generation, the dominant trait will be expressed. And they already told us in the question that the dominant is round. So round is dominant, which means that all the offspring or in that generation will all be round. This question can be paraphrased. It will tell you tall is dominant to short. The first generation what? The first generation, all of them will be tall, right? It is in the second generation that's when you now start seeing the recessive traits manifesting. Okay, so now let's move on. The farmland measuring 10 meter by 10 meter contains 350 rats. The population density of the rats is equals to. Now, when you see something like this, what is density? We already know that density in mathematics, density in physics is mass over volume, right? Mass over volume. But now, in biology, it is not mass over volume. In fact, the question has given us the answer already. It said rats per meter square. Rats per meter square. If you are wise and you are a very smart science student, number of rats is what? 350. So that's 350 divided. Remember, pi is divided, right? For physics, pi is divided. So we have meter square, which means that the dimension that is given 10 by 10 is going to be multiplied, right? That's going to give us 100 meter square, right? 100 meter square. So if we do this very well, our answer is 3.5. The population density is 3.5. Okay, so let's move on. Question 14. The weakening of the ciliary muscles of the eye, usually due to age, leads to presbyopia. Presbyopia. You should know myopia, short-sightedness, hypermetropia, long-sightedness. Okay, you should know what lenses are used to correct them. The same with astigmatism. All right, let's move on. 15. In an aquatic ecosystem, the zone exposed only during the lowest tides is known as the intertidal zone. Intertidal zone. Please take note of that. The intertidal zone is the aquatic ecosystem that is exposed only during lowest tides. Okay, the tissue responsible for providing mechanical support in young non-woody plant is known as coelencyma. Coelencyma. Alright, question 17. During photosynthesis, the splitting of water molecules by light is known as photolysis. Take note of that. From the word you will know already. Photolysis. Photo, light, lysis, breakdown. Alright. Question 18. Which of the following is a Biotic factor? Okay, so now I've come to Biotic factor. Which of the following is a Biotic? That's living, right? Predation. We already established that in the previous question. Predation is a living factor. Okay, question 19. The movement of water molecules from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. When you see semi-permeable membrane, what should come to your mind is osmosis. If there is no semi-permeable membrane, then it will be diffusion. But now there's a semi-permeable membrane, which makes it osmosis. Right? Question 20. Which of these is a macronutrient required by plants? Which of these is a macronutrient required by plants? All right, so we know that we have macro in nutrition, we have macronutrients and then we have micronutrients. So one thing that JAMB is going to be testing under nutrition is how well you know the macronutrients and then the micronutrients. So it is very, 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 very important that you know which one is macro and then which one is micro, in the sense that you know which one is needed, which one is not needed. It's not like it is not needed, but then a particular amount of nutrients is needed in a very large quantity. And then we have some other nutrients that they are not really needed in a very large quantity, but then they are still needed. So you should know the macronutrients, and then you should know the micronutrients. Okay, but then this is macro, this is big. Okay, that gives us magnesium. All of these nutrients, are they useless? No, they are still important, but they fall under the micronutrients. Okay, question 21. The tissue that conducts manufactured food from the leaves to other parts of the plant, from leaves to other parts of the plant. When you see food, what should come to your mind is phloem. When you see food, what should come to your mind is phloem. When you see water, what should come to your mind is xylem. Okay, so there are a lot of ways this question can be asked. This particular question can be asked in a lot of ways. All right, they can give you a particular plant. Okay, they'll give you a plant. Let me say this is a plant. Then you have leaves. This is a leaf of the plant. Okay, let me try another leaf here. So one of the ways they can give you this question is to represent it in diagram. Represent it in diagram. That this is it, and you have this place to be your soil. This place to be your soil, and then they will give you an arrow to tell you this arrow pointing from leaves down to the soil. They will not tell you this place is labeled as A. Take note of, or B or C or I or anything. Now tell you the process A is known as what. Now when it comes to the process, we have two processes where water and food is moved. We have translocation and we have transpiration. When it involves food, it is translocation. If it involves water, it is transpiration. Now for food, the movement is up to down. That means from the leaves, because that's where it will be manufactured. Then it will be transferred to other parts of the plant, majorly downwards. Okay, so downwards, translocation is downwards, transfer from leaves to other parts. And the particular structure that does that, or the tissue that does that, is known as the phloem. The xylem is the opposite of phloem because it does the opposite. It will transport water from the soil or from the root down to other parts. So you can see a diagram like this. It will now give you another arrow like this, and it will tell you this is B. It will tell you which process is B. You should know that B is transpiration, right? I said it's water transpiration and it's carried out by xylem. Okay, it's as straightforward as that. All of these things are things you should know because they can be paraphrased and you should be able to still attempt the question. Okay. All right. Next question. Which of the following is a primary function of the sclerenchyma tissue? So we already know that cholenchyma is for support. Now sclerenchyma, they also give mechanical support. Sclerenchyma and cholenchyma, but cholenchyma is for young plants that are still young. Okay, so sclerenchyma tissues give mechanical support. Okay, 23. In an aquatic biome, the region that is permanently covered by water is known as the subtidal, under tidal, subtidal zone. Okay, 24. The process by which complex food substances are broken down into simpler ones with the release of energy is known as catabolism. So we know that catabolism is breakdown, then anabolism is build up. Okay, so you should know the processes in the body that are catabolism. You should know the processes in the body that are anabolism. Okay, respiration. Now respiration is breaking down, right? So respiration is catabolism. Photosynthesis is formation of food. So you should know photosynthesis is anabolism. Okay, all of these questions can be paraphrased. Very, very important for you to know them even when they are paraphrased. Okay, so if you have watched to this point, please ensure you are hitting the subscribe button so that you're not going to miss any other updates I am going to be dropping on this my channel. Okay, so if your exam is still 2 days, 3 days from now, or a day from now, please, all you need to be doing this period is to solve a lot of questions. To do so well in JAMB, you need to read good, but then if you read so much without you practicing questions, trust me, you are just wasting your time because you are not going to do so well compared to when you practice a lot of questions. So now, this period, you don't need to stress yourself reading again. Ensure you attempt a lot of questions. Okay, so in the description of this video, I have attached my free crash course file for the subject physics, chemistry, biology, maths. Anyone you want to attempt, you can do what to click the link. There's a free crash course and also question banks that you can go through some questions to show how well you are prepared because question reviews our strengths and weaknesses. But then, unfortunately, some of us are very scared of practicing question because we feel, I don't want to discover that I don't know this thing. So we just pretend to understand or we just force ourselves to understand. This period shouldn't be that period where you deceive yourself that you understand something. Ensure that you practice questions. Okay, so let's move on. 25. Which of the following is the structural adaptation of xerophyte? So we said that xerophyte is stay in dry land. Abi? So let's look at this. What do you think will help xerophyte to stay in dry land? We have sunken stomata. Okay, so their sunken stomata will help them to stay in dry land. That is their structural adaptation. Okay, the theory of natural selection was proposed by Charles Darwin. Okay, Charles Darwin, and then that is the law that is generally accepted. Jean Lamarck produced, or rather proposed, the theory of use and disuse. But then his theory was disused because it did not really prove some important concept, because he said that acquired traits can be transferred from generation to generation. But then Charles Darwin proved him wrong with his own theory of natural selection. So all these things you should understand them. 27. Which of the following is an example of an anabolic process? Okay, I've talked about it already. You said anabolic is building up, and then photosynthesis falls under building up, because respiration is breaking down. Take notes, breaking down. Digestion is breaking down of food, excretion. All right. 28. The hereditary factor that determines a particular trait in an organism is called the gene. It is known as the gene. The gene. Okay. All right. Let's move on. 29. A student with blood group AB can receive blood group AB can receive blood from option D. So we have option A, AB only no, group O only no, group AB and B only no. It can receive from all the blood group. Why? Because it's a universal recipient. That's why I put it in brackets. It's a universal recipient, so you can receive from all the whole blood group, right? 30. The following are micronutrients, that's trace elements for plants, except which of the following is not a micronutrient? We have nitrogen. Nitrogen not a micronutrient. We have NPK. NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. These are not micro. Okay, nitrogen is a macronutrient. 31. In a controlled experiment, the group that is kept under normal condition for comparison is known as the control group. It's known as the control group. Take note of that. It's known as the control group. Okay. 32. The sudden change in a gene or chromosome that results in a new trait is known as mutation. Mutation. All right. 33. An example of a plant that shows the presence of pneumatophores, that's breathing roots, is you will find breathing roots in white mangrove. This is a very common jam question. A very common jam question. You should know this by now. Once you see pneumatophores are also known as breathing roots. Right? So breathing roots are found in white mangrove. White mangrove. 34. The association between sea anemones and hermit crabs is an example of commensalism. Okay, so as much as possible, try to know the examples under parasitism, commensalism, predation, competition. Those examples in your textbook, you should know them. Okay, you should know them because that is what JAM is going to ask you about. 35. Which of the following structures in a cell is responsible for protein synthesis? Protein synthesis is carried out by ribosome. Okay, you should know mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, so it generates power through what? Cellular respiration. Nucleus control units. It carries what? The material that controls hereditary and also carries genetic information. Okay, so vacuum space in the cell. Okay, 36. The exchange of gases in a wooden stem occurs through. Now, you should take note that exchange of gases occurs in stomata and lentil cells. Okay, when you see exchange of gases in plants, stomata and lentil cells. In wooden stems, it is carried out by lentil cells. Okay, lentil cells carry out wooden cells. The wooden stem. 37. Which of the following organisms exists as a colony? Okay, exists as a colony. This is a very simple question. Also, you have your volvox. Your volvox exists as a colony. So you see volvox like this. See volvox like this. Okay, I just wish I can still remember diagram of volvox. Okay, something like this. So you see it's round. It's round. So when you see them round, just know that's colony. And when you see them straight, okay, straight like, you know that that is filament. And an example of filament is your spirogyra. Spirogyra exists in or exists as a filament. So you have something like this. For spirogyra, you have something like this. Spirogyra. Okay, spirogyra. Filament. All right, so let's proceed. Next question we have. The part of the flower that receives pollen grain during pollination is the stigma. Alright, so we know pollination is the movement of pollen grains from where? From anther to what? Stigma. Please take note. Anther to stigma, not stigma to anther. Alright, 39. In the food chain, grass, grasshopper, toad, and snake. The toad is the toad. Now, let's analyze. This is the toad. Remember, grass is what? Grass is a producer, right? So grass is a producer. Producer. grasshopper will be what? A primary consumer. Primary consumer. So it is a primary consumer. Then toad feeding on grasshopper will be a secondary consumer. So we have gotten our answer already. So toad is a secondary consumer. All right, question 40. A physiological variation in humans is the ability to roll tongue. We asked that question. You can see the same question, but then different format. It is paraphrased. Okay, physiological, also known as discontinuous. So you see physiological variation, they are discontinuous. Okay, take note of that. All right, question 41. The site of aerobic respiration in the cell is in the mitochondria. Please take note of that. Aerobic respiration occurs in the mitochondria. All right, so moving on, we have question 42. Which of the following is an excretory organ in insect? The excretory organ in insect is the mammalian tubule. Mammalian tubule. Kidney, human, this earthworm, and then you have flame cell also. So you should take note of all of these. 43. A group of similar organisms living in the same habitat and at the same time. When you see same organism, it is population. When you see different organisms living together, it is community. Okay, it's important that you know the hierarchy. So you have population to community, community to what? Ecosystem, and then ecosystem to what? Biosphere. Okay, population is same organism. When it's now different organism is community. So when those different organisms now interact with a non-living component, it is ecosystem. So ecosystem is living organisms interacting with non-living components, and you have ecosystem. Then various ecosystem come together, and then you have biosphere. Okay. Question 44. The process by which an organism maintains a constant internal environment is known as homeostasis. Homeostasis. Okay. Question 45. Which of the following biomes is characterized by heavy rain, high temperatures throughout the year? Okay. The answer to this question is tropical rainforest. It's a very common question. Tropical rainforest, you always have significantly high rainfall, or heavy rainfall rather, and high temperatures. Okay. 46. The opening and closing of stomata is controlled by guard cells. Guard cell. This is another common question. You must have come across it in your past question, but then it came out for those who wrote UTME. So you can see that some of these questions are questions that you must have seen somewhere in your past question, but then people saw these questions in their exam. So your UTME is basically past question, whether you believe it or not. The more you solve past question, the more UTME becomes easier for you. And I am talking from experience. I wrote UTME a couple of times, so I can tell you that, oh, this is what I did and this is what I tried. That eventually I did not score so high, but then my score was able to give me my admission. Okay, so ensure you practice a lot of questions. 47. In genetics, the physical appearance of an organism is referred to as phenotype. Then the genetical composition is known as genotype. Take note of that. Alright. 48. An example of a plant that exhibits epiphytic growth is known as your orchid. Your orchid plants exhibits epiphytic growth. Alright. 49. The waste product of respiration in plants will give you carbon dioxide. Please take note. It is still carbon dioxide. Waste product of respiration in anything, whether plant or animal, it is carbon dioxide. There is a particular wrong theory that a lot of students have. Human beings will breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen, right? So plant is going to be the opposite. It is not the opposite, it's still the same thing. Okay. That's philosophy where it is the oxygen produced by plants that we breathe in is photosynthesis for the plant and not respiration for the plant. Respiration for the plant is still the same process with that of humans. So they take in oxygen and then their waste product is carbon dioxide. So please take note of that. Question 50. Which of the following is a nitrogen fixing bacteria found in the root nodules of legumes? You have your rhizobium. Rhizobium are bacteria found in the root nodules of legumes. So this is the last question for this video. Then so we have come to the end of this video. Like I said earlier, ensure you do well to solve a lot of questions. Keep on solving till the day of your exam. Practice a lot of questions. If you are in need of question, in the description of this video, check it out. You see I dropped some links. Click the link, solve questions, bring out your past questions, solve a lot of questions. This period, that is the only thing that can help you increase your score relatively significantly. Don't do reading. Even if you are going to be reading, it shouldn't be intense. What you are supposed to be doing now is to revise, and that revision is to be done by practicing a lot of questions. So if you have finished watching this biology, you also do want to check out the chemistry. Like I said, this period should just be you revising a lot of questions. So if you have not checked out the chemistry, check it out. There's also a video I dropped for physics. Okay. Most importantly, ensure you subscribe to this channel. If you are not a subscriber, ensure you subscribe to this channel, because after UTME, more updates are going to be dropping as regards admission across all universities in Nigeria. So try as much as possible to hit the subscribe button. So when those updates start dropping, you are not going to be left out. Once again, I want to wish every one of you who have watched this video success, and I hope that you are going to do so well. And I pray and trust God that you are going to do so well in your examination. Bye for now, guys.